Good morning, dear students of class 8th. Welcome to the English online learning class. Today we are going to further continue with the lesson The Open Window by H. Munro Saki. So in this lesson, so far we have studied how Frampton Nuttall, who was suffering from nervous breakdown, he was advised by the doctor to visit the countryside. And he was not knowing anyone in the village. So his sister came to his help. She gave him some letters of introduction to the people she knew there. Now he went to one of the houses of Mrs. Sappleton. At that time, Mrs. Sappleton was doing some work upstairs. So her niece, who was a 15 years old girl, she attended Frampton Nuttall. And she said that the aunt is busy. In the meantime, they can have a conversation. She began the conversation by asking him, does he know many people in the village? Now, Mr. Nuttall said that he doesn't know anyone. His sister had been staying in this place 4 years ago, and she has given him letters of introduction to some of the people whom she knew. Now, then this girl began by saying that it seems here that you do not know anything about my aunt. Mr. Nuttall said that only her name and address. He was just thinking whether Mrs. Sappleton was married or widowed, but at the same time, something in the room gave an indication that there was a masculine presence, a male presence. The girl began by saying that this tragedy happened just 3 years ago. And then Mr. Frampton wanted to know tragedy because he thought that this place was very peaceful. Now, the girl began by saying that have you ever wondered why this window, French window, the large French window in the sitting room, the drawing room, was left open on an October afternoon, although it was quite warm. She began by saying that out through that window 3 years ago, her husband and her 2 young brothers, they went off for their day's shooting. And in crossing the moor to their favorite shooting ground, they were all engulfed in a treacherous piece of bog. In this dreadful wet summers, when even the safe places, they were giving way without any warning, they were caught in the bog and their bodies were never recovered. That was the most sad part. Now, while she was speaking this, her voice lost its confident note and she became very human. She could feel the tragedy. And she said that her poor aunt waits. She thinks that probably they are going to return one day, all 3 of them, along with the little brown spaniel that had accompanied them. And that is why the window is left open every evening till it is quite dusk. She felt sorry for our aunt. How her aunt used to often tell the manner in which her husband left with his white waterproof coat over his arm, and Ronnie, her youngest brother, singing Bertie, why do you bound? Which she found very irritating. And she further said that, do you know that sometimes on a quiet evening like this, even I have a scary feeling that they are going to return back. At this point, we stopped. Let us continue further. Mrs. Sappleton comes down at last and inadvertently confirms her niece's story. Frampton tries to acquaint his host with the nature of his ailment. Through the opened window, he can see things that can worsen his nerves. She broke off with a little shudder. She, the niece. And she stopped. And she was feeling very scared, it seems. It was a relief to Frampton when the aunt bustled into the room. Even Frampton was scared listening to this story. And it was a great relief when Mrs. Sappleton came to the room because he thought that now the subject of the talk is going to change. With a whirl of apologies, she felt extremely sorry for keeping the guest in waiting, for being late in making her appearance. I hope Vera had been amusing you, she said. Vera is the name of her niece, now we come to know. And she said that I think Vera was entertaining you. She had been very interesting, said Frampton. So Frampton, he tried to add to Mrs. Sappleton's statement by saying that she was very interesting, although she was not. I hope you don't mind the open window. She said, I think that you don't mind the open window, said Mrs. Sappleton briskly. My husband and brothers will be home directly from the shooting, and they always come in this way. They have been out for snipe in the marshes today, so they will make a fine mess over my poor carpets. So like you menfolk, isn't it? So she said that, do you mind this open window? Because my husband and brothers will be coming home from shooting, as was told by Vera, that she used to wait for her brothers to come and husband to come back, and that is why the window was left open. They have been out for snipe in the marshes today, so they'll make a fine mess over my poor carpets. So like you menfolk, isn't it? So she was repeating that this is the habit of all the menfolk, that they mess up. She rattled on cheerfully about the shooting and the scarcity of the birds and the prospects for duck in the winter. To Frampton, it was all purely horrible. He made a desperate but only partially successful effort to turn the talk onto a less ghastly topic. He was conscious that his hostess was giving him only a fragment of her attention, and her eyes were constantly straying past him to the open window and the lawn beyond. It was certainly an unfortunate coincidence that he should have paid his visit on this tragic anniversary. She rattled on cheerfully. She was talking cheerfully about the shooting and the scarcity of birds and the prospects for duck in the winter. She was continuing her talk. And for Frampton, it was purely horrible because he was thinking that any time this ghostly appearance of three people may come to the house. He made a desperate but only partially successful effort to turn the talk to a less ghastly topic. He was scared and he wanted to divert the topic. He was conscious that his hostess was giving him only a fragment of her attention. The hostess, Mrs. Sappleton, was not paying attention to him, and her eyes were constantly straying past him to the open window and the lawn beyond. and she was continuously watching through the open window to the lawn beyond. Probably she was expecting her three dead family members to return. It was certainly an unfortunate coincidence that he should have paid his widow's visit on this tragic anniversary. He felt that it was an unfortunate coincidence that he should have paid his visit on such a time. We'll stop here and we'll continue with this in the remaining class. Thank you. Take care.